Okay. Welcome everybody to Conscious Conversations. I'm Richard Sykes, and today the topic that we're going to dive into is on conscious relationships, how to heal and open your heart to love. Today I'm joined by Raffaello Manacorda. Just to give you a quick introduction to Raffaello, he's a yoga and tantra teacher with over 15 years experience in different conscious communities. He's also leading very popular workshops based on conscious relationships. And he's also the author of the book, Conscious Relationships too. So I'm excited to have Raffaello on the call. I actually met him in Koh Phangan, but we didn't really speak that much. We always kind of just gave each other a bit of a nod, and that was about it. But it's definitely a topic that I want to dive into, and I'm sure that I will learn a lot more about. So, Raffaello, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on this conscious conversation because, like I said, this is an area and a topic that I'm very excited about, and in my eyes it's something that's bringing me the most amount of growth in my life at the moment and enabling me to really uncover and let go of old programs, I suppose, that don't serve me. And I do really see relationships, either polyamorous or monogamous, as an extremely effective way to grow. So just tell me a little bit about what got you into this this path, and why conscious relationships.
Well, I guess what excuse me, I guess what got me into this path was just the failure of the previous way I had to do relationships. So I was really an example of unconscious relationships. As most of my friends in the environment where I grew up, I just started by replicating the patterns that I had learned regarding relationships, jealousy, intimacy, sexuality, etc. And that just didn't work. So out of suffering, you could say, or out of distress with what was going on in my intimate life, I had to find alternative solutions. And that's really what got me into this path.
Excellent. Yeah. So a bit more about what you touched on with unconscious relationships, the kind of contrast of what we're going to dive into during this call. I mean, it's essentially a way to help people open their hearts, really, and heal them to love. So what do you see as an unconscious relationship?
Basically, with unconscious, I mean anything that we do without reflecting on it, that we do out of habit. To give an example, we could see how many people nowadays have an unconscious way of feeding themselves, like with food, which means that, according to wherever you are born and what your standards of nutrition are, you will eat maybe fish and chips or burgers or pasta if you're born in Italy like me, without giving it a lot of consideration, just out of apparently that is freedom, because people say, well, I just eat whatever I feel like eating, but in truth there are some powerful patterns that are acting unconsciously, so under the radar. And to bring this into the realm of relationships, for example, for me, I can give you an example. Because of the culture that I was born in and raised, then a typical unconscious behavior was that whenever I was interested in a girl, I would always take into account that I would have to fight with the man that this girl was hanging out with, if there was such a man, which was most often the case. So that was normal for me. I wouldn't even imagine that some other way of dealing with the situation was possible. And in this way, many other aspects of my intimacy were unconscious, automatic, if you wish, and quite malfunctioning at the same time, I would say.
Yeah, it's a very interesting and deep subject in itself, I think, and I really do think you could have a completely separate conversation just about unconscious relationships, and there's so much to cover. How do you see like social conditioning and like kind of cultural conditioning playing a part in, you know, unconscious kind of relationships?
Yeah, I definitely think it plays a huge role. I can tell you my personal experience. One of the hardest things for me was jealousy. So I was very, very jealous, and I used to, at first, when I realized, first of all, it took me some years to realize that I was jealous. And then when I did, I kind of thought, okay, this is because I am like that, and, you know, this is my individual problem. However, when I then moved into different contexts, social contexts, where jealousy was dealt with in a different manner, in a different way, I realized that also my way of being jealous changed, and for the better. So I had the experience of also positive conditioning, in the sense of, you know, when the people around me were more harmonious in dealing with jealousy and less dramatic about it and less catastrophic about it, it immediately helped me out deal with the issue myself. So there is definitely an interaction there between our makeup and internal wiring and what surrounds us, for the good and for the bad alike, you know.
Yeah, I think, no, Yogananda said a quote that always kind of stayed with me, that your environment is stronger than will. And it kind of really plays into what we're saying about, you know, the environment that you live in, the people that you surround yourself with will really have a big impact on who you are and who you're choosing to be. Because a lot of the time we can hold kind of our own truths and really feel what's right for us. But when we see everybody acting in a certain way, we start to kind of just fall into their behaviors. And I think a lot of that can come from, you know, a need for acceptance and to feel like we fit into that environment. So I really agree with what you're saying there. And I think it's important to really start to move away from certain environments and to be more surrounded by more, like, I suppose, people who are more congruent with who you are as a person. I mean, if we kind of stay with jealousy a little bit longer, because, you know, it's definitely something I've dealt with myself, and I'm sure many people still deal with that, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the people you work with deal with jealousy. What would you say helped you not only with the new environment, but within yourself to start to overcome kind of jealousy and the feelings of it?
For me, because of the way I am, it really helped to go to the roots of my jealousy and kind of discover the hidden thoughts or the hidden ideas and assumptions that I had that were fueling this jealousy. This is because I am someone that really wants to live his life in coherence with my own principles and ideas. And of course, there is some flexibility there. But in the case of jealousy, I discovered that I was really, preaching one thing and then manifesting a totally different thing in my own intimacy, in my own intimate life. And so then I just sat with this contradiction and accepted it and kind of felt into it. And slowly in time, I managed to harmonize the two. So what I thought was correct and good and bringing me towards evolution, and what I felt and what I actually felt in my intimacy. And it took quite a bit. It wasn't, a matter of 1 or 2 days, but that helped a lot. It also really helped to have the support of the women I was relating to. And when I say support, I don't mean support as in, they playing along with my game of jealousy and, playing guilty, or no, a support which was coming from a place of independence, autonomy, but also love. So it really helped to also question a little bit the gender roles and the gender dynamics that I had been playing along with previously. That really helped.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of that will have come from living in a new environment too, I take it, and being surrounded by people that are a little bit more aware, a little bit more understanding, maybe forgiving, and being able to see what's going on rather than just immediately judge it. And I think that's something I really felt like helped me too. When you start to become a little bit more aware of your behaviors, and we're talking at the moment about unconscious behaviors, and I know we'll move into more the conscious side of it, but I think it's a good way to start, because let's face it, the majority of the population are living predominantly unconsciously, and studies show that we operate from our unconscious, subconscious 95% of the time. And I really see that that's one of the biggest challenges, or kind of paths, I suppose, for most of us, is to start to stretch that consciousness from 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, and really start to become more conscious and aware, so that we're not living just unconsciously and repeating old programs that don't serve us. And a lot of these programs, as you'll know, have been passed down to us anyway from our family members, our parents, and they'll have been programmed by their parents. So it's kind of like this chain that's just been passed down from generation to generation. And I think it's good now we're coming into a more conscious kind of upturn to take a lot more responsibility and to really start to investigate these behaviors. So yeah, what do you think about the people that are really just starting out on this path and investigating and taking responsibility and being more aware? What do you feel is a really good kind of philosophy or mindset to adopt when looking into these kind of unconscious patterns and behaviors?
Great question, because for those who, as you say, are starting on this journey, there is a lot of obstacles. First of all, your group of friends, your family, your environment might just not understand what you're doing, and there is a lot of little tests along the way. You're going into kind of uncharted territory, maybe not so much anymore, which is good. There is already a little bit of knowledge base regarding all these issues. So what mindset can you adopt? Well, I think it really, really helps. For me, I would come up with a couple of things. First of all, it really, really helps to always link your life, your individual personal life, to something bigger. Because if you just look at your own life with your relationships, then at some point it can seem just like it's too much work, to change all that. Just like, why? And then comfort can kick in, and the tendency to just let things as they are. So I think it really, really helps to link your project with a partner, with a lover, with whatever arrangement you have, to a bigger picture. Like, how would you like the world to look like? If anyone did what you are doing, how would things be? And that helps a lot, especially in moments of despair. Especially when you're like, oh my God, this is too hard. But then when you remember that you're not just doing it for yourself, but for the bigger picture, it really helps. And then the second thing I would like to maybe offer is that which counterbalances it is that, especially at the beginning, I'd suggest to be very practical and to try out different tools and different techniques. For example, with jealousy, just to give an example, there are so many little techniques that can help. So instead of focusing on one way of doing it, it's good to be flexible, to have a toolbox. And for example, if meditation doesn't help, well, then try something else. And if being completely transparent and honest with each other, with your partner, seems a bit too much at the beginning, then find something that is a middle step. So being practical.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was just thinking about a lot of my old kind of programs and some of the challenges I've even been through recently in my own relationship, and just being able to express, what's going on, and to really see sometimes as well what's behind what the person is actually articulating, because sometimes we can be triggered and we can say something and that what we're saying is actually just coming out of pain, and it's not really what we really need. It's just maybe frustration, or we might be reacting through jealousy, or we might have been triggered and we're saying something, but the words aren't really portraying what we need in that moment. And looking back through a lot of my relationships, I suppose that a lot of the time I've been triggered and felt a certain way. And one of my biggest, I'd say, challenges to overcome has been a fear of abandonment, which is, I think, is a big one. A fear of loss, a fear of rejection, all of that kind of coupled into one. And that for me played out. And it's beautiful sometimes to really kind of look back and to see the old patterns and to see how far you have come, and to really see why you was acting that way. And the way I kind of dealt with this fear was to, sabotage relationships and to look for a way out, or always be thinking about who my next potential partner could be, and it was kind of this like unconscious drive to enable me to avoid what I feared. But the pattern of this kind of way to avoid what I consciously wanted was sabotaging me, my ability to truly get what I wanted. So that for me has been a really interesting lesson, to bring more awareness into my old patterns and to really see how my behavior has been making me sabotage the very thing that I was looking for. Consciously, and I wanted love, I wanted connection, and deep intimate relationship, but unconsciously I wanted to run away from it because there was so much pain attached to it. So do you see this with a lot of the people that you work with?
Absolutely. And I see this with myself, like this kind of self-fulfilling prophecies that you end up creating exactly the situation that you feared the most, or that you're trying to escape from. So I totally see that. I saw it in myself. In my case, my number one fear in a certain stage of my life was also fear of abandonment, but more specifically the fear that my lover would connect to someone else and have an adventure with someone else. Even if they later came back to the relationship with me, I was very scared. And I ended up creating exactly those situations in my life by being controlling, by leaving no escape to my lover, so that they had to find their own freedom somewhere else. So it's so interesting, because what you say is, I would say, perhaps a pattern of unconsciousness way beyond intimate relationships, but in general. So whenever we have this fight, these two opposing forces, or divided will, if you wish, where we think we want something, as in your case, you thought you wanted lasting relationships or stable relationships, but actually a part of our subconscious is sabotaging the play of the conscious will, then we get ourselves into trouble. And yes, many of the people I work with have exactly this issue. And as you said, very often the solution, all you need is bringing awareness to what's happening. And once you have been able to see how you yourself sabotage your own intentions, then in time this dissolves and a certain degree of harmony is reestablished and things work.
Yeah. And I think as you've touched on, the key to this, I mean, it's called conscious relationships for a reason, right? Is to be aware of it. And I think so many of us are stuck in this unconscious way of living and reacting to what's going on without really seeing what's beneath it all. And the awareness side of it and being able to clearly see why we act the way we do, and being able to really start to understand it more and kind of nurture it in a way and love it and understand maybe where it's come from, the origin of it. Talking about my own experience again, that's really helped me to create kind of like a space between me and my old reaction. So it's kind of like that awareness has created a gap and more time and more breathing space for me to be able to say, okay, well, I know where this is coming from. It's an old program, it's an old pattern, and I choose to see it and breathe through it and kind of act in a different way. And it's interesting because like situations will always come and will always kind of point to the part of us that needs our love and attention, but we live in a very reactive society, and most of us will just react back at what's triggered us without really having the awareness to see what the situation is pointing to. And I think that's probably one of the biggest realizations for me was to stop blaming, stop reacting, and really deflecting any responsibility to look at myself and to say, okay, well, this situation keeps happening because I need to pay attention to what the situation is pointing to, which is this feeling, this fear of abandonment, this belief that love is suffering, all these distorted beliefs. I had to really see them and expose them and work through them. And it's made a tremendous change in my own ability to have a healthy relationship. And they still kind of try to come up, but they're a lot weaker now. And I think they eventually fade and completely disappear the less power we give to them. Is that something that you've felt yourself, or?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to really also connect to what you just said of taking responsibility of what happens in your intimate life, and really the blame game. So blaming someone else for the hardship and the broken heart or the difficult feelings that you're going through is a disempowering action. So putting the responsibility of my sadness into my partner, or even into the whole feminine population, because sometimes we even tend to generalize in that way, or masculine. It disempowers me. And what I found out is that one fundamental step for going into conscious relationships is what I call emotional responsibility, which is just what you mentioned, being willing to take responsibility of our own emotions. And that is, at the beginning a little bit of work, but in the end, it empowers you immensely. Ultimately, even the people that we're attracted to or not is something that is much more under our conscious control, or can be much more under our conscious control than we think. Even the chemical attraction, which is supposed to be totally, you know, something that, you know, there is this blind angel shooting arrows around. Even that bit, you know, I can tell you from my personal experience that I tended to have this specific stereotype of woman that I was attracted to, even physically, you know, and energetically. And that didn't help because it was limiting my range and my view a lot. For example, you know, there could be a super nice girl wanting to connect with me, but if she didn't meet those criteria, then I wouldn't be even looking at her in that way. And I managed to free myself from that patterns and to be really able to experience attraction with a much, much larger, you know, sample of the human population, which has had amazing results for my own life. So I totally agree with you on that. And what you were saying about, you know, the patterns becoming weaker and weaker as well, in my experience, it is similar. For example, jealousy hasn't disappeared from my life. You know, just pum. It just becomes manageable, and then it becomes part of a bigger picture where there are spots of light, spots of shadow, but, you know, all together there is harmony. So what we're aiming with conscious relationships is not to be, you know, always on a high of whatever, happiness and joy. No, there will be hard moments, there will be sadness, there might be jealousy as well. But as you very beautifully said, you can watch all these situations, and especially the negative ones, with a little bit of distance, and then not being carried by the current. You can move on and dance the dance.
Absolutely. And you said something that really resonated with me too, about being able to communicate our emotions. And I think that's been a learning process for me too, because I never really had anybody in my life to show that to me. You know, I didn't have any father figure to say, you know, this is how you express your emotions. And, you know, you look at the world today, and I think we're very uneducated when it comes to expressing how we feel, you know, and not only expressing how we feel, but processing emotions and really taking, like we've already spoken about, responsibility for them and allowing them. And emotions are so empowering or disempowering depending on our relationship with them. And I think that the more that I've been able to express how I feel, like you said, it's been able to open up so many new doorways and different dimensions to the relationship I'm in, not just with my partner, but with myself and with other people too. And the video by Brené Brown is a really good one on vulnerability. And for me, I can really resonate with that now more than ever, and see how in the past I wasn't expressing my emotions honestly. I was acting through them quite reactively. And I can see there's such a big difference between being able to peel away the mask and the ego, and being able to just say how we feel. And that for me has taken some practice and some work, and it's still an ongoing practice. But I really have seen the difference and the trust that it builds in that relationship too. It kind of fuses the relationship, and it also invites the other person to be authentic too and express in the way that they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree on that. And of course, I guess most places, there is also a specific gender problem there with the masculine gender that is, if anything, even less trained to express emotions. Sometimes as men, we even get the message that it's not really cool to feel emotions, to show them, let alone to express them. And that might not always be the case, but it's still a largely predominant culture. So in that sense, regaining the vocabulary to express your emotions beyond good, I'm good, or I'm not so good, what's the whole range of feelings? That's a huge work.
Yeah, I kind of call that trans talk. There's different levels of communication. There's the surface level, which is saying what people want to hear. Like you said, I'm good. If people walk past you in the street, hey, how are you? Everything's fine, thank you. How are you? And it's kind of just this like conditioned way of communicating to make each other feel comfortable. But if somebody was to stop you and say, how are you doing? And you start to really tell them how you were doing, honestly tell them how you were doing. Like, I feel, sadness. I feel a little bit angry. It wouldn't be received. Depending on the type of person you were speaking to, but I can imagine many people that would probably run a mile if I really expressed to them how I feel in that moment, because we can ask somebody how they are, but not really want to know how they are. And that's the funny thing about communication now. So this for me is an important part of, I'd say, any relationship, communication. I'm interested to hear how you yourself have noticed the changes in the way that you communicate with in relationships, and how you also teach people that too.
For me, that the communication bit has been one of the hardest, because I was definitely one of those men that is not used to express emotions, not used to talk about them. So it took me a huge effort. And luckily, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. There is people that have, developed tools and frameworks. And for me, definitely one of the most important tools in the area of communication has been the Nonviolent Communication Framework, or NVC. And this is an amazing tool that I really encourage everyone to have a look into, because it really trains you to express your emotions, but also to separate the emotions and the feelings from the observations of what's going on, which is another big confusion. It's one thing to say how you feel, and it's another thing to say what you've heard, what you've seen, what you have witnessed with your five senses, and all this information is important to get across. And really being able to express your observations and feelings, but also your needs, and eventually even a request to the person listening to you, is such an amazing process. So I used it a lot, and it really, really helped. Finding the words and the system and the structure to express emotions without dumping my emotions, on someone else, just expressing them. That really, really helped.
I'm interested to hear a little bit more about this, actually, because a friend of mine in Berlin mentioned nonviolent communication a few times, and I always thought that sounds interesting, but never looked into it any closer. And can you give a more kind of concrete example? I mean, I don't know if you want to kind of make something up, or maybe give an example of something you've experienced, just so anybody that's watching it, and even for me, we can maybe adopt that process.
Sure. So nonviolent communication is a 4 steps process, and each step, it can sound a little bit artificial, but in each step you're required to express a specific aspect. You start by expressing the observations, then you express the feelings that you have, then you express the needs that are causing those feelings, and this will become clear maybe when I make an example. And then finally, in the fourth step, you can express a request. So for instance, let's say that you know, I'm at home and I had a date with my girlfriend and to go to the restaurant, and she calls in and says that she cancels it because whatever, she's tired. And I get very upset, you know, that this triggers my emotional reaction. So in the nonviolent communication style, what I would have to communicate would be something like, you know, when I hear you saying that you won't come for dinner, and this is the observation part, this is what I've heard, I feel frustrated and upset and disappointed, and this is the feeling part. Then the third step would be to express my needs that are not being met. So because I need company and intimacy and just human connection, for example. And finally, in the fourth step, I can express a request. So therefore, I request that we meet tomorrow and spend at least 1 hour together. So this whole long sentence gives my lover a lot of information about what I've heard, what feelings are moving inside me, what my needs are that are not being met and that are generating those feelings, and finally what she could do to help. It's very different if you think about it from the typical, oh, you're not coming for dinner? Well, you know, fuck you, or something like that. It's very, very different. And
well, it's interesting because Tony Robbins always says that we will always find a way to meet our needs, even if that comes through conflict. And what you just said there, I mean, obviously it's not a positive way to meet your needs. There's a positive or negative way to meet your needs, but it's always a decision. And I think the example you just gave there were beautiful. And the word that came to me when you were saying this was just transparency, of being completely transparent in the way that you feel, your observation, your perception of the situation. And I think the first part is extremely important, to express the way that you've seen the situation and how it's made you feel, because even in that first part, the first step out of them 4 steps, the reply you could get could completely change the way that you've observed or you've perceived that situation, which I suppose then might even cancel out the rest of the steps. Because if we've perceived something a certain way and we say, look, this is what you did, or this is what I think you've done, and it made me feel this way, but the reply is, oh no, this is actually what I did, and this is why I did it. We could then instantly think, all right, okay, well, you know, it was just a bit of a misperception. But the conventional way to deal with something that triggers us is, like you said, to react, to get caught up in the emotion, to then maybe distance ourselves from the person and not answer their phone calls, so that then they chase us, and then we start to feel wanted and needed. They come knocking on the door, and it's like we pull away to pull them in. And I think that, you know, it's a way to meet our needs, but it's not a very healthy way. And this example's great, because it's the first time I've heard this nonviolent communication explained.
Also, if you notice, this whole process constantly uses the word I. You know, when I hear you saying that, then I feel, because I need, and so I request. So it's the assumption of responsibility is really ingrained, is really present throughout. And there is a apparently subtle, but very deep difference between when I hear you saying this and that, I feel so and so, And so this is one way of putting it. And the other way would be, you said that you would come for dinner and you're not coming for dinner. Therefore, well, you make me angry. So this is a total, delegation of responsibility where the subject is you. And of course, it triggers a defense mechanism. And I would like to comment also on what you said about, we will always find a way of getting our needs met. Yeah, that might be the case, but there is a huge difference between meeting your needs through willing cooperation of the people you love, so that they, do whatever they do willingly and out of love and out of the desire to help, and meeting your needs through manipulation, force, or emotional blackmailing. In the short term, this last three ways could even be more effective. Paradoxically, they sometimes are. But in the long term, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So if we want to build a network of support and love around us, then I think we can only hope and work towards the situation where other people are doing what they're doing because they want to help, not because they're being threatened or manipulated.
Yeah, I agree, and I kind of feel as though there's the pure way of having our needs met and the kind of synthetic way. And like you said, like we can use manipulation or fear tactics to pull people in and to feel as though we're getting our needs met, but we're not really. It's like the synthetic way. And I remember working with a woman who was chronically ill, and she was fatigued. She had chronic fatigue syndrome, and she came to me and consciously wanted to get rid of this health issue. And we started to speak, and we started to go deep into her past. And we discovered that when she was a child, she didn't receive much love or attention. And when she cried, she'd be put in a room and she'd be ignored and that kind of thing. And she never really got what she needed in that moment. As a child, love, attention, connection. So as she grew older into an adult, this need was still there unconsciously. And she developed a fatigue, an illness, and which put her in bed. And she said that her family started to come around and bring her food and show her a lot of love, a lot of support. So in that instance, it was very clear as to why she was still ill. And what I suppose Tony Robbins meant when he said we'll always find a way to get our needs met is that this woman, for example, she was ill. She consciously wanted to be healthy, but unconsciously she was getting her needs met of love and support. When she was ill, she was receiving love and support. So on a subconscious level, the subconscious is saying, well, let's keep this illness because you're getting what you need. So then she was trying to the conscious was trying to fight the subconscious, but the subconscious was always going to win. So for her, it was about starting to see the truth in her life and be able to see other areas that she was receiving love and support, and how much more love and support she'd receive if she was healthy and happy and able to be and do what she wanted to be and do. So it's a very interesting one, how we can always find a way either positively or negatively to get our needs met.
Good point.
Yeah. I want to move into the workshops that you provide now. I know they're very popular, and I'm pretty sure they're very powerful too. What's the kind of setting and process you move people through with your workshops?
Well, my workshops are basically the synthesis or the distillation of my journey and of what we've talked about this hour together. So it's really not so much an academic training or journey, but rather an experiential journey that comes from lived experience. Mm-hmm. So what that means, what that translates to in practice is that we create a container, we create a setting where we can go through some of the most pressing issues in intimate relationships, like the ones we talked about: communication, jealousy, transparency, in a way that is not so triggering as when it happens in your real life. So that's one of the, you know, the most important aspects of a workshop like mine, that you can really role play and put yourself into situations that are triggering potentially, but at the same time you're doing it within a protective environment, and therefore it's not, you know, it's not really happening with your boyfriend or with your girlfriend, but you are going through the situations as if it was happening, and then you can find the opportunity to rewire your response and find a new way to respond, for example, to jealousy or to cheating or to lack of transparency or to difficult emotions. So I do give also some theoretic framework. For example, nonviolent communication that we talked about is part of my offerings. But in the end of the day, what really matters, or what matters the most, is the experiences that you can have during the workshop that can really rewire the brain synapses. So that's what I provide. And as you say, the response so far has been very, very good. People in all sorts of situations, like married couples, single people, polyamorous folks, anyone who is willing to engage in intimate relationships in their own life can benefit from such a work.
So it doesn't necessarily matter if somebody wants to be in a polyamorous relationship, monogamous relationship, is any kind of relationship, even a friendship. Because I suppose people even have resistance to get close to friends too.
Yeah, you're totally right. What I found out is that 99.9% of the issues we face are the same for monogamous people, polyamorous people. You know, jealousy is still an issue. Clear communication is still an issue. Transparency as well. So of course, then there are some nuances and some differences, but in the end of the day, it's quite similar. And I try to keep the workshop open to all different walks of intimacy and life.
Yeah, because there was, looking back again, I started to wonder if I was kind of more suited to polyamory. And, you know, there's still times that I think, well, polyamorous, is it for me or isn't it for me? And maybe it will keep changing as I get older. I'm not sure. But for now, I'm in, you know, a very loving and happy relationship. And to be able to still see another woman and feel attracted to another woman, I feel is important to me. Not like I'm going to go and do anything, but I feel that is my, you know, human, animalistic kind of nature and my right. But how do you maybe discern between, let's say, somebody who genuinely wants to be in a polyamorous relationship, be with different people, love different people, connect with different people, to, let's say, somebody who says that they want to be polyamorous, but it might be fear-based. It might be coming from a place of, I don't really want to be intimate with a person. Therefore, I'll use this label, let's say polyamory, to be able to avoid intimacy and just keep moving from one person to the next. Do you dive into that? Do you go a little bit deeper with that and try to bring that to the surface for that person to see?
As you say, the only telling clue to know whether we're doing what we're doing is to feel inside our heart and discover whether there is fear or there is love. And funny enough, you can choose polyamory out of fear. You can choose polyamory out of love. You can choose monogamy out of fear, and you can choose monogamy out of love. You can even choose celibacy out of fear, or you can choose celibacy out of love, because that's what your soul needs in that moment. And in this sense, what I empower people to do is to find their own truth. I cannot say, from an external point of view, whether someone is making the choice they make out of love or out of fear. I can have my own projections and images, but the only person that can really, really know that is the person itself. So all these tools like nonviolent communication, emotional responsibility, they're all pointing towards the same objective. Look into your heart, find out what is there, and then if it's love, then just follow, just go on. And if it's fear, then bring the fear out, look at it, and find a way to live according to love instead.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautifully put. I went through a bit of a process actually on the magical island of Koh Phangan, where I met you, and it was kind of like a very natural purification process that I went through unknowingly. And for those who are watching this who don't know much about Koh Phangan, it's a beautiful island, beautiful community, beautiful people, and I met many beautiful women there and were connecting with different people, and a lot of the time it was a very short kind of experience, so I'd allow myself to kind of open up and fall in love with that person, let's say, and it was happening very quickly because I was so open. And then they would leave, go back to their old life, and I felt a little bit of sorrow or pain. And it was a very interesting process because I was obviously teaching emotional freedom technique at the time, so I was being with the emotion, allowing the emotion, the feeling, and I felt this clearing, and I felt my heart open even further. So I thought, oh, that's interesting, and it was kind of like an invitation to see how deep I really wanted to go through connecting and through allowing whatever needed to happen in order for me to be more deeply embodied within this love. And it was a beautiful process, and I kind of want to lead and finish with the title of this this conscious conversation, which is all about healing and opening our hearts to love. What do you feel, Raffaello, from your own experience in opening, and trusting and really aligning with love, has been the best process for you, and something that you teach that people can really take away themselves and to understand how they can start to heal their hearts and open them and allow themselves to love?
I think you actually mentioned the word that I would love to use in your own way, and the key word is trust. So what really, really heals and what really helps is trust. And by trust, I don't mean a passive stance of waiting for a confirmation from the outside so that you can trust. No, I'm talking about an active decision. It's a decision to trust. And, there is no reason, if you wish, to take that decision other than knowing that if you trust, then the world will correspond to your trust. So it's a little bit like the decision of being optimistic or the decision to be positive in life. So once you take that decision to trust and uphold it through the ups and downs of life, which will be there inevitably, then in time you start perceiving your heart as something not so fragile, not so easy to wound, not so easy to break, but rather as an extremely powerful jewel that it's almost unbreakable. really, like, it has a power of its own. And once you feed that power with trust, then really, life can give you all the turns and tosses about that life likes to do, but you won't stop loving whatever may happen. So I think the ignition, like when you turn the key in the car, the ignition process that each one of us needs to do actively is to turn on trust. So decide to trust, the sooner the better, and then things will unfold in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a beautiful word to use and finish with, really, trust, because there's this funny paradigm and paradox of, like, we eventually avoid the very thing that we want, and we put ourselves through pain and suffering to avoid pain and suffering. It's like we want love, but we avoid it. We want connection, but we fear it and avoid it out of a fear of disconnection. And I think trust really allows us to step into any situation and, like you said, use that ignition, open your heart, keep it open, and trust that anything that's happening is only happening to purify what's blocking this jewel, like you said, so that we can feel more open and more connected to the people that we want to be intimate with.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm on that. And for anyone who's listening and wants to, go home or go back with one suggestion, is just trust, and then, of course, keep doing the things you need to do and be smart, and not suggesting to be naive in any way, but just, as you said, trust the universe, trust your own soul, trust the process of evolution that you're going through as everyone else, and things will unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I could keep talking to you, Raffaello, for another few hours, but I think it's a beautiful opportunity to wrap this up. And I want to thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart, for this opportunity to talk to you, because it's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a great deal, and it's a journey that I'm still on, and there's challenges, but this, conversation and the reminders throughout this conversation have really helped me, and I hope that anybody that's watching has gained as much as I have from this. And I want to also just remind anybody that's watching that Raffaello does his regular workshop, the Conscious Relationships workshops, and will implement a lot of the things that you've been speaking about. Do you want to let us know a few of the dates? I mean, I will put a link in the description of this video for you and your website and the upcoming workshops. Are there any that you want to talk about right now that are coming up?
Yeah, there is a few dates in August in the United Kingdom. So we have Bristol and London, both workshops and free presentations. So already this week, the Bristol workshop is happening next weekend. So that means August 13 and 14, and we have a free talk on August 12 in Bristol in a beautiful yoga hall called Yoga Sara. And then the following week, I'll be in London giving 2 free talks on the 16th and 17th of August, and then the full workshop on the weekend of August 20 and 21 in the London Buddhist Art Centre in East London, Bethnal Green. So any of you who is in the UK, either Bristol this weekend or London next weekend, I warmly invite you to come to the free talks and feel into it. And then if you feel the calling, come join the workshop, and we'll have an amazing experience together of transformation and growth.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again, Raffaello. It's been an absolute pleasure. And anybody who's watching this video, for more conversations like this, just subscribe to the channel, leave any comments, and remember to check out Raffaello's workshops and also his book, Conscious Relationships, that I will also purchase very soon and read, because it sounds amazing. And thanks for watching. Thank you, Raffaello.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks. Take care.